I wanted to dedicate this morning's talk to Rabbi Aaron Pankin, who was the president of Hebrew Union College, a young man who was killed in an airplane crash over the weekend. My heart goes out to him. He was one of the greats, and it's a great, great loss for Am Yisrael. And within the framework of the Reform movement, he was a person who loved Israel. There are no words, but I hope that our community knows some nichumin, some comfort through the extraordinary things that he did in his too short a life. He was very, very close to my son Dove and was in our home several times. They did Wexner together.
It's difficult to hear you, Rabbi.
Come closer, Ted.
That's okay.
Ted, I want you to come closer. Come. Our topic this morning is Israel at 70, assessing the Zionist dream. A topic which is very close, I know, to our hearts. The session will be more frontal than my normal teaching on Monday nights and Tuesday mornings, because there's a lot that I'd like to get in, and we'll try to, after 50 minutes, an hour, leave a few minutes for some questions and reflections. I still have memories of our grandson's induction into the Israeli army. We were at the Kotel, and as he took his shvu'ah, as he took his oath, I looked to the side and I could see that my father of blessed memory was crying. I had never ever seen my father cry in all of his years. And that night I went up to my father and I said, "Abba, I hope I'm not intruding, but I never saw you cry. But as Gilad joined the Israeli army, I saw tears." And he said to me the following. He said, "I was raised in the town of Oshvenchim, the town that became Auschwitz. And when I was a little boy, we were beaten up. My father was a strong man, had the capacity to defend himself, but he couldn't defend himself against those odds. And here I am, more than 90 years later, and I'm seeing my great-grandson join the IDF, Tzva Haganah Yisrael, and I shouldn't cry. The tears that you saw were tears of great joy." That moment between my Abba, Harav Moshe ben Harav David Visara, and our eldest grandson Gilad was one I won't ever forget. That story encapsulates my early understanding of what Zion is all about. The word Zion could mean mark, a tziyun. It's a mark. And in its broadest sense, it could also mean a destination. You're marking a point you want to arrive at. After 2,000 years of exile, from country to country, stateless, we finally had a homeland with an army and with the capacity to defend ourselves. As Abba said, as a little boy, we were defenseless in the town that became Auschwitz. And now I'm seeing my great-grandson wearing a uniform in an elite unit, defending Am Yisrael and Jews around the world, and for that matter, democratic and Western values around the world, and I shouldn't cry. As it specifically relates to the Shoah, I would say the following. I think everyone understands that there would have been a state of Israel without the Shoah. But in the reverse, it should also be pointed out that had there been a state of Israel, hundreds of thousands, and I would say had there been a state of Israel, there would have been no Shoah. From 1933 to 1941, Oto Ha'ish, Hitler Yamach Shemo, the plan to murder was not in place. He wanted to be rid of Jews, but there was only one problem. We had nowhere to go. The establishment of the State of Israel, Tzion, that mark, that destination on its most foundational level, is a statement that the Jewish people will always have an insurance policy. We will always have a safe political haven. If ever something happens, as it has happened since the establishment of the state, in the Soviet Union, in Ethiopia, now in France, the story of America is not yet through, Israel is that physical insurance policy. And this is the meaning of the Chok HaShvut, one of the first laws to be passed in the Knesset, the law of return. I've done many talk shows on radio, certainly during my activistic years, and I would always be challenged by the other side who would say the law of return is a racist law because Israel is declaring a Jew can receive immediate citizenship unlike all others who have to wait 3 years. And my response is that the Chok HaShvut is a profoundly religious statement. On the heels of the Shoah, what the Knesset was saying is, never again. Never again will Jews be left out in the cold. Every Jew could declare immediate citizenship. As a matter of fact, when the debate in the Knesset arose as to what will be the definition of a Jew for the Interior Ministry, for a Jew to declare immediate citizenship, the response was the definition of who is a Jew will be the Nuremberg Law's definition. During the Shoah, during the time of the Third Reich, they declared a Jew is a Jew if one of your 4 grandparents are Jewish. If that was enough to be murdered during the Shoah, that would be enough for a Jew to declare, I am a Jew, I wish to have citizenship. And this was my understanding of what Zion was all about, and it's understanding that remains to this very, very day. Growing up on the tail end of the Shoah, standing in front of barricades throughout the world, our clarion call was, of course, never again. And the ultimate never again was the establishment of the state. And the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, in place. Now let me transition now from this point to what is the essence of what I want to share with you this morning. This is a critical understanding of what Zion is all about, but it is a reactive understanding. That is to say the following: there's a need, and Israel was responding to the need. Jews for 2,000 years were never safe. During the Shoah, what unfolded is what unfolded. 6 million were murdered. In response, there is a state and never again. It's a reaction, a need, and you respond to the need. But I want to put this out there as a theory. There's nothing wrong with something surfacing because of a need. There's nothing wrong with something surfacing as a reaction. But nothing endures, in my opinion, if it remains a reaction. If whatever we're doing remains a reaction, it will not have a continuum. It can only have a continuum, it can only go on if what was originally reactive turns into a proactive message as well. So Zion, it's not enough for Zion to be the place where we are guaranteed to the best degree possible on a human level, where we have as Jews an insurance policy. Zion cannot only be a reaction, it has to be a proactive expression of a fundamental piece of what we're all about. And what is the proactive message of Zion? If we were to sit here with scholars, if we were to go around this room and ask people what is the proactive message of Zion, everyone would have something to say. But I've got the floor this morning. So I want to tell you where I think it comes from. I think it all emanates, I have a couple of extra sheets here so you can pass this around, from this pasuk in Yeshayahu. Who was Yeshayahu? Yeshayahu was the prophet about 150 years before the destruction of the first temple, and he says, Ani Adonai kraticha v'tzedek ve'achzek biyadecha ve'etzarcha ve'etencha librit am leor goyim. I, the Lord, have called you in righteousness. I will take hold of your hand. I will keep you and will make you to be a covenant for the people, for a light of the nations. Now, often we quote the expression, or lagoyim, a light to the nations. To my knowledge, that precise grammarian phraseology doesn't exist in Tanakh. It's here. The phrase is leor goyim. God says, I have called you in righteousness. I'm holding your hand. I will make a covenant with you, a contractual partnership, God says, with you, the Jewish people, to be a light of the nations, an or ligoyim. An or ligoyim. Now, what is this or ligoyim? What is this light? Now, there are some thinkers who understand the or to have something to do with the soul, the Jewish soul. You've heard the expression, ner nishama, the Jewish soul. And there is a strong strand of opinion that the light that we share with the world is souls that Jews possess that are superior to other Jews. Not very nice, but I want to put it out there on the table. It's the position of the Kuzari, Rav Yehuda Levi, in the Middle Ages, where he talks about the highest level of existence, he says, is the human level, but there is a level on top of the Medaber, which is the Yisrael, the Jew. It's the position, all you have to do is read the first chapters of Rav Shneur Zalman Miladi's the Tanya, and yes, it's the position of Rav Kook too on some level, this great universalist. Now, he was not that close because he would say if you convert, you suddenly can get the higher soul. But there is such a position. It's a position that I struggle with. I have great, great problems with that position. For me, a fundamental concept in the Torah is that every human being is created b'tselem Elokim. The image of God is not placed in the first Jew, it's placed in the first human being from whom all human beings come. All human beings possess the image of God. All human beings are of equal value. For me, the or can't be the ner neshama of superior level. Rather, and I believe this is the mainstream opinion, the or refers to bringing the light of our mission to the world. The light in broad terms of Torah, ethics to the world. Note in the Avraham Sarah narrative how there is constant hints at the word or, light. It's a very, very important noun in Jewish theology. When Abraham and Sarah come to Israel, the first place they set up is in a place, Shechem, which is called in the Bible, Elon Moreh. Moreh is Or. And the end bookend is, of course, when he's told to take his son to Eretz Har Hamoriyah. It's all Or. And ultimately, we, the Jewish people, are giving the Torah, and the Torah, probably in its derivation, comes from the word Or. It's a light. We're given this light, and we are, according to Shayahu, to be Le'or Goyim, a light of the nations. Now open your hearts, because this could get dangerous too. One has to look at this in a very self-reflective, humble way. The movement of being an Or LaGoyim is not from the particular to the more particular. Rather, it is from the particular to the more universal. It's not a light that we're supposed to retain and have it remain insular. It's a light that's supposed to emanate outwards. That's why Abraham's first name was Abram. He was Av Aram. He was the father of Aram. He was the father of a locality. Ultimately, his name is changed and he becomes Avraham, Av Hamon Goyim. He becomes a light of the father of the multitude of nations. Similarly with Sarah, what was her original name? Sarai, my princess. But she was not to remain my princess. She ultimately becomes Sarah, the princess of the larger world. That's what I mean when I say the light is not a movement from the particular to the more particular, but from the particular to the universal. Let's take a look at number 2, at the words of Sepharno. What does he say? Now we're moving from the Abraham and Sarah story to the genesis of our becoming a nation at Sinai, where God says, "Vatem tiyuli mamlechet kohanim," you will be for me a kingdom of priests. Uvazeh tiyu skulam mikulam. In this fashion you will be the treasure of them. Ki tiyu mamlechet kohanim, by being a kingdom of priests, lehavin ulahorot lechol ha'anomin ha'enoshi likro kulam b'shem Adonai, to understand and teach the entire human race that all shall call in the name of Hashem and serve Him in one accord. That's not a statement of superiority as much as it is a statement of responsibility. The responsibility, as Sepharno lays out, is for Am Yisrael to be the catalyst to generate a world that is redeemed. It's not a statement of superiority, but of responsibility. To be the catalyst to generate a better world, a world redeemed. When he says here, the Sepharno, Likro b'Shem Hashem, Shem Hashem, if you will, is the code word for the mission of Judaism. The mission of Judaism is to bring Torah ethics into the world. The sentence right up there: do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God. And of course, in all of its details. And when Abraham comes to Canaan, he sets up an altar, Vayikra b'Shem Hashem. He calls out in the name of the Lord. And he doesn't just call out in the name of the Lord. Calling out in the name of the Lord means calling out in the name of Torah ethics, of ethical monotheism. As God says to Abraham later on, V'shamru derech Hashem lasot tzedakah u'mishpat. In the Kaddish that we say, what's the most important word in the Kaddish? The word Shmei. Yitgadel v'yitkadesh Shmei Rabbah. Yehei Shmei Rabbah. Yitbarech, Vishtabach, Vitpa'er, Vitroma, Vitnaseh, Vitada, Vitale, Vitalal, Shmei Dekucha. Yehei Shlama Rabba min Shmaya. Okay, there's an Aleph in Shmaya. It's close enough. Each section of the Kaddish, what we're saying about the person for whom we're saying Kaddish is, this person brought God and God's system of ethics, left this world a better world. That's the challenge. When the reader reads the Kaddish, the reader is reminding the assembled who are praying that this is our responsibility as we pray. We're not only making requests of God, but we're being reminded of what our mandate is. Our mandate is to bring God and God's system of ethics into the world. This requires just one more point. One more point. I've been saying over and over that this responsibility should really, really be encountered in a self-reflective way. Light, and we're talking about light, moves in many different directions. Try to remember just this phrase. As we are asked to enlighten others, we too should be open to being enlightened. That's the key. That is a key. We are not the only ones in this world who have something to share and something to give. We have much to learn from others, and that is a critical, critical point. The term chosen is a complicated term. There have been and will be more doctorates written on what does it mean to be the chosen people. We all know the Tevye line, I know we're the chosen people. Couldn't you choose on someone else for a change? We're not the only ones who were chosen. Look at the Genesis story in Genesis 1. Human beings were chosen from the rest of the world. God turns and says, Naseh Adam b'tzalmenu kidmutenu. Humanity was chosen. And when one looks around the world, there are so many people, so many nations who have made their unique contributions. And the person who says this most powerfully and poignantly is none other than the Rambam. And the Rambam was an arch rationalist, all from the head. And when he wrote, he said, I'm not the only one who has ideas. I'm not the only one who can make a contribution. In fact, he said very modestly, most of what I have to say, I've learned from other rabbis, I've learned from other midrashim, and then he says, and I've learned it from other philosophers. Take wisdom from wherever it comes. Yes, we have something unique to contribute. But in the same breath, we have to be open to that which others are contributing as well. Take a look at the Rambam in his introduction to the Shmone Prakim, and know what I'm writing in these chapters are not mine. He's saying it in a very self-effacing way, but they are ideas that I've collected from Midrash and Talmud, and also from the earlier and later philosophers and from books written by many people. V'kabel ha'emet mipi she'omro, and receive the truth from whoever says it. And I believe that this should be understood not only to receive it from individuals, it means to receive it from communities, it means it should be we receiving it from other collective nation states. V'kabel ha'emet mipi she'omro. Look what's happened here. We first argued that Zion is a reactive term. Israel is our insurance policy. And now we're trying to move from this mission being a reactive mission, and it is a mission to have an army to protect our people. It is certainly a mission, but to move it into a proactive statement, into a proactive stand. And that proactive stand is based on the concept of bringing light to the nations of the world, which then takes me to the next level. What does Israel have to do with that? What does the country have to do with that? What does our sovereignty have to do with that? If our mission is to be a light to the nations of the world, couldn't we do it by living dispersed throughout the world? We have a very sweet community here in Riverdale. I hope we're making a contribution. Chabad makes another contribution. I would argue that the conservative synagogue right up the block makes another contribution. There are many great contributions. Your father made a contribution in Kansas City. Many contributions. And yet, friends, every time in the book of Genesis where God speaks to the patriarchs and the matriarchs and lays out the mission to be the light, the language in Genesis is a little bit different. The language is, and be a blessing for the world. V'nivruchu v'cha kol mishpachot ha'adama. To my knowledge, without exception, every time that is put forth, it is always interwoven with land. Take it from the beginning. Chapter 12, sentence 1. Famous sentences. Vayom Adonai el Avram. God says to Abraham. And if he's speaking to Abraham, he's talking to Sarah. And what does he say? Lech lecha me'artzecha umimladcha umibet avicha el ha'aretz asher ar'eka. Go to the land that I will show you. V'secha legoy gadol v'avarechecha v'gadla shemecha. And in that land ve'yeh bracha, you will be blessed. You will be a blessing. V'avracha mevarcheka. Those who bless you, I will bless. Umekalelcha aor. Those who curse you, I will curse. And then v'nivruchu v'cha kol mishpachot hadama. Through you will be blessed all the nations of the earth. Every single time, land is always interwoven with this mission of being La'or Lagoyim. Take a look at it. Chapter 26. God is speaking to Yitzchak, to his family. Same thing. I don't have it right in front of me. But you can look it up. Chapter 26, sentences 3 and 4. When Jacob leaves home and he sees the ladder, same thing. God says, if someone brings me a chumash, I'll read it to you. God says, Elitza, I need a chumash. So God says, by the way, the Vilna Gaon says that when God says to Abraham, V'avracha mevarcheka, and those who bless you I will bless, he says, well then it should say, Umekalelcha, those who curse you. What should be the next word? Umekalelcha? Akalel. What does it say? Umekalelcha aor. Now the word or, arur, is also curse. But it could have used the alliteration, Umekalelcha akalel. Do you know what the Gaon of Vilna says? Umekalelcha aor, and those who curse you I will curse. He understands aor to be a play on the word or. Even those who curse you, show them the light. It's all full of light. So let's take a look now at chapter 26 now. This is God speaking to Yitzchak. God says, this is when there was a famine, and God says, unlike Avram, don't leave. God says to Yitzchak, Gur ba'aretz hazot, live in this land. Ki lecha ulizaracha etein et kol aratzot ha'el. I'm going to give you this land. Vakimoti et hashvuah shenishbati l'Avram avicha. I will fulfill the oath as I made with Abraham. V'irbeiti et zaracha v'natati lizaracha et kol aratzot ha'el. And then v'hitbarchu v'zaracha kol goyei haaretz. That's it. That's the Or Lagoyim. Through your seed will be blessed all the nations of the earth. Chapter 28. Jacob is on the run. God is standing over Jacob as he sees the angels ascending and descending. And God says, I am the God of Abraham and Isaac. Haaretz asher ata shochei v'aleha lecha etnena ulizarecha. This land is yours. And your land will multiply. And then v'nivrechu v'cha kol mishpachot adama. Through you will be blessed all the nations of the earth. And I wondered about this. Land is always interspersed, interwoven with this mission of La'or Goyim. And so I want to suggest the following. A suggestion. If we open this up, we can talk about this not for hours, but for days and more. From this perspective, I'd like to argue the land of Israel, the state of Israel, is not only a place of political haven. It's not only a place of safe refuge. It's not only the place that we can run to. No. And it's not only the place where we can do more mitzvot. You know, there are mitzvot hatluyot ba'aretz. There are mitzvot that can only be performed in the land of Israel, like the tithes, the truma, and the maser, and all of that. And frankly, it's not only the place where, given the high rate of assimilation in America, where Jewish continuum is going to be more assured, is going to be assured. All of this is mentioned as being part of what Israel is all about. It is that, but that's not its essence. In its essence, I will put forth that what it's about is that Israel is the place, the only place where we as a nation state have the political sovereignty.
Have the what?
The political sovereignty and the judicial autonomy as a state, as a nation, to drive our own course, to carve our own destiny, to act and not react. Only there. That's the only spot. I'm proud of this community. I'm so proud to where Rev Stephen has taken Bayit to levels I couldn't imagine. Baruch Hashem. I'm very, very proud. I'm very proud, like a proud Abba or grandfather these days, at what the men and women from Chovevei and Marad have done. I'm proud of what all these communities have done throughout the world. It's a very sweet contribution. But I'm telling you, there are communities in the Golah that are communities of Le'or Goyim, but I'll say it this way. The national destiny of Am Yisrael, however, can only be realized in Medinat Yisrael. Maybe personal destinies, but the destiny of our people as a people is only there. Now, Rav Kook says this very eloquently. Let's take a look at number 4. This is the mission to deliver humankind from Orot, from the terrible suffering of spiritual and material troubles, and bring it to a life of freedom, full of splendor. Splendor, not slender, I wish. And sensitivity, illuminated by the divine idea, and to cause all people to prosper. For the fulfillment of this longing, it is really necessary that this society should possess a political and social state. He died in 1935. With a seat of national government at the peak of human culture. Okay, that's Rav Kook. A wise and understanding people. Am navon v'chacham, he's quoting, and a great nation. And the absolute godly idea should reign there, reviving the people and the land with its life. Turn the page for a moment. This is Rav Kook, also from Orot. Eretz Yisrael einena davar chitzoni. Israel is not something apart from the soul of the Jewish people. Kinyan chitzoni l'uma. Eretz Yisrael hi chativa. עצמותיה קשורה בקשר חיים עם האומה, חבוקה בסגולות פנימיות עם מציאותיה. Eretz Yisrael is not like a sideshow when discussing Judaism. It is part of the very essence of nationhood. Many people would disagree with this. My good friend Leonard Fine, of blessed memory, I used to do a gig with him debating all around, and he would always say, no, there are 2 centers of primacy for the Jewish people, Jerusalem and the west side of Manhattan. That's what he would say. I would quote Rav Kook, Eretz Yisrael is part of the very essence of our nationhood. There is one central place of primacy. It is bound organically to its very life and inner longing. Now I want to step back and I want to just put this out there. I'm offering a particular pathway as to what this is all about. All you have to do is listen to any symposium, to any panel discussion, or sit down with any Israeli and talk to them about the mission of Israel, and you're going to hear a lot of different stuff. I think most would agree that Israel needs more than an army, which is very central and very critical. Most will articulate a proactive mission. What that proactive mission is, what that Or LaGoyim is all about, that's another story. I have my opinion. I've got the floor. There are other opinions. I'll show you an extreme on the other end of the spectrum. Judah Magnus, Reform rabbi of great reputation, first president of Hebrew University, going back to the early 20th century. Look at your sheets, number 6. This is his dream of Or LaGoyim. The policy of developing a Jewish spiritual center, that's the Or LaGoyim, the Or Goyim, does not depend upon mass immigration, a Jewish majority, a Jewish state, or upon depriving the Arabs of their political rights for a generation or a day, but on the contrary, is desirous of having Palestine become a country of 2 nations and 3 religions, all of them having equal rights and none of them having special privileges, a country where nationalism is but the basis of internationalism, where the population is pacifistic and disarmed, in short, the Holy Land. Not even the land of Israel. It's the Holy Land. But Jerusalem is not Jewish alone. It is Christian, it is Muslim. Jerusalem is an interreligious sanctuary. And an international city, and it should remain this. Its function is to be the center of religions of the world. It should be internationalized. For Magnus, the light is a binational, demilitarized state with Jerusalem being internationalized. Now, for religious Zionists, I'm a religious Zionist. As I see it, Israel is a Jewish democratic state. As I see it, it's a Jewish democratic state of Torah ethics. What does that mean? I'll say in broad sweeps what it means. I would mention a PowerPoint where, as I said before, passionate particularism does not contradict universal consciousness, but is a prerequisite to universal consciousness. So when Rabbi Ari Hart, God bless him, when he says to me over a year ago, I've got to go to Greece to welcome the refugees coming, the Syrian refugees coming across the Mediterranean, and then he returns and he says, Avi, you won't believe it. Do you know who is the biggest NGO in southern Greece welcoming the refugees? They're Israeli NGOs. They're the only ones who speak Arabic. So they welcome everybody. Passionate particularism doesn't contradict universal consciousness, but it's a prerequisite to it. And that's the tough debate today in Israel. What do we do with the Sudanese refugees? It's a real issue. It's a real debate. In fact, I contributed a little bit. We had some of the old-timers. I was the youngest of the old-timers. I don't know if you saw it, but I wrote a letter. It was penned also by Rabbi Yitzhak Greenberg, Alan Dershowitz, Abe Foxman, Marvin Heyer. If I may, just anecdotally, it reminds me of, there's a color commentary. His name is Miller. What's Miller's first name? He's the basketball commentary. No one knows?
Reggie Miller?
Reggie Miller, right. So he was watching Duncan play for San Antonio. And Duncan was great, but he was already, I think, in his early 40s. So they turned to Reggie Miller and they said, well, what do you think of Duncan? And there he is on national TV. He goes, Old Man River. So when the 5 of us signed this, I felt like saying, Old Man River. So we wrote our piece and we said to the Prime Minister, we think you should appoint Natan Sharansky. He's the genius of human rights. Let him look into this issue. Let's solve it properly. You agree with me, you disagree with me. I'm sure there can be 100 different opinions right here. But that's a powerful discussion in Eretz Yisrael. Powerful. Where its army, and here I get very emotional, is an army of Torah Laneshek, purity of arms. Our grandchildren, when they went into the army, your children and grandchildren, they not only get a gun, but what do they get? They get a Tanakh, and these issues are debated back and forth, and everybody has an opinion. And where I would add, what for me is this light from Israel, It has to categorically reject any form of kfiyat hadat. No religious coercion. I think the time has come that the monopoly of the chief rabbinate must be dismantled. Religious and spiritual striving and religious coercion, they're oxymorons, it doesn't work. Now what I've told you, I've just thrown out to you little pieces of what I think should be the lower lagoyim. For every piece, we could talk about it for a long, long time. But what I want to leave you with is that whereas Tzion started for me as this reactive idea that we need an army to protect the Jews who had been betwixt and between, forlorn and driven from place to place. No more of that stuff. No more. No more. You should see the way Rabbi Soloveitchik in 1956 spoke about the Israeli army. He said, I know eye for eye means monetary compensation, but this is the Rav in Kol Dodi Dofek. He says, we have to start taking it literally. He was really talking about the need of physical defense, and we still have that need. But it's got to move into something proactive. And the proactive is being a light of the nations. Now, there are three caveats that I want to add. The first caveat, Jewish sovereignty in the land of Israel is not guaranteed. It's discomforting, but I'm telling you the way it is. That is to say, God covenantally makes a promise that the Jewish people will be eternal. They will always be Jews. There have always been Jews. In the toughest times, there have always been Jews. And there will always be Jews. And if I'm wrong, I'll buy you a beer. But there is no covenantal promise where God says that Jews will always be sovereign in the land of Israel. And the best proof of that is we were not sovereign for 2,000 years. We were not sovereign after the first Commonwealth, the 70 years when we were in Babylonia. If you take a look at number 7, covenant is always land and children, always. When you're looking for God's covenantal promise to Abraham and Sarah in the Bible, it always deals with land and children. And so God speaks to Abraham and says, he brought him forth, the second sentence, and said, look now towards the heaven, count the stars, so shall be your seed. Ko yeh zarecha. And Abraham, despite the fact that this is contrary to everything logical and biological, he's been married to Sarah for so many years, he believes. V'min b'Hashem. He believes. Then God says, Vayoma elav ani Adonai asher hotziticha miur kasdim. I took you out of Babylonia. Latet lecha ha'aretz hazot lirishta. I've given you this land. What happens here? Vayomar, and Abraham said, Adonai Elohim, b'ma ida ki rashena. How do I know? What do I have to do? It's a very problematic text. If Abraham believes that against everything logical, he's going to have a child, why shouldn't he believe the promise of the land? The promise of the land seems to be a less complicated promise. My response, and the Ramban talks about this, is the following. Abraham knew that the promise of children, the promise of a peoplehood was eternal. We don't have to do anything, there will always be Jews. And by the way, if we don't want to remind ourselves that we're Jewish, somebody else will remind ourselves that we're Jewish. There will always be a Jewish people. But when it comes to land, Abraham understood that that's not an eternal promise. In the end of time, there will always be, but it's not a promise. There's a promise that at every moment there will always be Jews. But there's not a promise that at every moment there will be Jewish sovereignty in the land of Israel. There is no such promise. Now, this is very, very disconcerting. When I looked at this and I studied this, I didn't want to receive it because it's very, very comforting if Israel were guaranteed. Very comforting. All I have to do is be. Put B in bold letters, B-E. All I'd have to do is be. But once one argues that sovereignty of the land is not guaranteed, what does that mean? Being is not enough. What's necessary? Doing. Being actively involved. That's why Abraham asks, Bama Eda Ki Rashena, what do I have to do? God says, take animals, split them in half. Oh, this is ritual symbol. What does that symbolize? God says, you want the land? It's going to require sacrifice. He's sacrificing animals and vow, but it's much deeper than that. It's going to take sacrifice. It's not just going to happen. It depends upon our input. We have to do everything we can to make it happen. Now, we can sit here again and open up this discussion and ask, well, what do we have to do to make sure? What is the key effort that we have to be involved in to make sure that the land of Israel remains Jewishly sovereign? I've got the floor. For me, what's most important is, and the greatest challenge that we face, to maintain sovereignty in the land of Israel. It's not a physical challenge, and we've got all kinds of serious physical issues. As my grandsons in the army tell me now, what's going on down south in Gaza is very painful, but that's not what's worrying us. What's worrying us is what's going on up north with Iran and Syria and Iran and Turkey and now Russia. This is serious, serious, serious business. I don't think, though, with all of that, that's our key challenge. I don't think our key challenge is even the spiritual, religious challenges, ideological challenges. For me, the greatest challenge to our remaining sovereign is the unity of Am Yisrael. It's the achdut. It's the bringing together of our peoplehood. And unity is not uniformity. Uniformity is that I achieve togetherness by eradicating what you believe in. That's how I'm uniform. Uniformity is when you went into Sodom, they had a bed that was 5 feet 10 inches. If you were too short, they stretched you. If you were too long, they just chopped your legs off. That's uniformity. Whatever our differences, I'm going to do away with your position. I'm going to eradicate it. Unity is different. Unity means living together despite differences, despite religious differences, despite political differences. It means listening to each other. It means not impugning motives to the other. It means learning from the other. I'll give you just some examples. Politically, I had to come to understand this. I'm still on the political right. I was on the extreme political right. Extreme. I'm the rabbi in America who supported the Machteret in the early 80s. The greatest mistake I ever made in my activistic human rights life was supporting the Machteret. That's for another discussion, the Jewish underground. I always believed I'm on the right because those on the right love the land of Israel. Those on the left are ready to give away pieces of Israel for peace because they don't love Israel. I was wrong. The right, I had to understand that I have no monopoly on loving the land of Israel. Those on my left, including Rabbi Aaron Lichtenstein, of blessed memory, Rabbi Yehuda Amital, of blessed memory, they love Israel as much as I do. But they felt that in discussions and negotiations for peace, you could give away pieces of Israel. And the left, by the way, has to, and the same is true with Yitzhak Rabin, of blessed memory. He loved Israel just as much as anyone on the right, in my opinion. As prime minister, he calculated that this is what had to be done, and there's a lot to be said about it. I was one of Rabin's biggest critics. Wrote the piece after he was assassinated, mourning Rabin from the right. Those were very complicated times. The left also has to understand that they have no monopoly on wanting peace. I want peace just as much. Not impugning the other's motives is very critical. Or on a religious level. And I think the religious Zionists would say, they learned a great deal from the Shomer HaTzair nationalists. When the state of Israel was first established, the elite units were full of those who were anti-religious. They were nationalists. Rav Kook writes about this. Rav Kook writes how we have to learn from the nationalistic community who really was not involved in depth in Torah. Just as, by the way, we're seeing something phenomenal today. We're seeing secular Batei Medrash surfacing all over Israel. Go to Tel Aviv, and you're going to find people coming together learning Torah. They're not people who wear tzitzis, who put on tefillin. For me, that's wonderful. It means we're talking to each other. We're learning from each other. That's my first caveat. My first caveat. Jewish sovereignty is not guaranteed. It's up to us. The second is, I'm talking now to myself, when we talk about myself, bearing in mind that I live outside of Israel, I am not a complete Zionist. This is also a radical different idea, although this was a big debate going back to the 50s when Ben Gurion argued, I'd rather have a Mea Sharim Zionist living in Israel than a person planting trees from America. This became a very big debate. He soon, by the way, changed his mind because I think he was read the Riot Act and he knew he had to secure funding from America. This was a big debate. Can you be a Zionist living outside of Israel? And I don't think you could be a complete Zionist. I'll give you an anecdotal side example. Who was a Talmud Chacham? Rabbi Dov Linz is a Talmud Chacham. So if I'm a philanthropist and I'm supporting Chovevei or Marat, does that make me a Talmud or Talmidah Chachama? I'm a supporter of Torah. So for me, and I know there are probably half the people here disagree and want to throw things at me, but for me, living in the exile, you can't be a complete Zionist. You're a shtickle Zionist. But you can't be a complete Zionist. Maybe more than a shtickle. Okay. The complete Zionist is one who lives in Zion. And I found this Gemara. The Gemara says, if you'll turn the page to number 8, the Gemara is based on a pasuk in Yirmiyahu where Jeremiah, who lived during the destruction of the first temple, he says during that time, the Doresh Ein Law, no one was seeking out Jerusalem. Tzion he, Doresh Ein Law, that's the sentence in Yirmiyahu. Michlal, from here we deduce the boy Drisha. Jeremiah said that with the temple destroyed, it got to the bottom of the pit where no one, even those who went into the galut, into the exile, were yearning for Israel. He says, you know what you learn from this? If you live in the diaspora, if you live in the exile, seek it out. Yearn for it. So I came up with the idea that I'm not a complete Zionist, but I am, new word, I am a Doresh Sion. And I think those living in the exile, synagogues in the exile, let's talk about synagogues. I think they could be fundamentally divided into two different sectors as they relate to Israel. There are those that are absolutely disconnected from Israel. They're disconnected. Israel is Israel. I'm here. Shalom al Yisrael and finished. But there are those diaspora communities, and I believe we're one of them, who understand that we are absolutely connected. Rav Nachman Mibratzlav said, I may be in the exile, but you know what he said? Wherever I'm walking, where am I walking?
Israel.
I'm walking to Israel. Wherever I'm dreaming, whatever I'm dreaming of Israel. What does it mean in practical terms? It means I have to ask myself, when was the last time I visited Israel? Pesach? When was the last time I visited Israel? Am I calling Israel when something happens and telling whoever is there, friend, family, you're not alone? Am I walking up and down the supermarket and buying Israeli products? Am I advocating for Israel? Am I an AIPAC person, a NORPAC person, and frankly, an AMCHA person? I don't care where you're at, and this will surprise you. Even J Street. I think J Street should be welcome into the President's Conference, and I don't know if I agree with anything that they say. But they're advocating. I have much more respect for somebody who ideologically disagrees with me, but has an opinion, and is connected to Israel on some level. You're connected. For me, a Doresh Tzion, and here I'm really talking to myself, is one who says, my life as a Jew is incomplete as long as I'm living in the Golah. as long as I'm living in the diaspora, my life is incomplete. It means that I'm thinking, I'm yearning to go on Aliyah. Now, the big question I'm going to get is, well, Shein Zeit, how come you're not there? I'm still working on it. And I know that when I get up there, it's a question that up to this point in my life, I really have I have some rationalizations, but I have some understandings, but God may say, one person's understanding is another's rationalization. I'm not sure it carries that much weight, but I want to put that out there. The challenge from the Golah to be a Doresh Tzion, a yearner for Zion. And the third caveat is for redemption to occur, God needs our help. God needs our help. Now the Haredim and the right wing really disagree. Even Aguda and Chabad probably disagrees. Even Chabad does not believe that the establishment of the state of Israel has any deep religious meaning. There's meaning that so many Jews are living together, and that's why Chabad and Aguda, and I believe even the Haredi, care deeply about Israel because Jews are living there. But Chabad, they don't sing Hatikvah. The normative Chabad, unless there are political considerations, will not read the Tefillah L'Shlom Medinat Yisrael. Why? Because redemption will come when God is good and ready to bring redemption. Messiah will come when the Messiah is ready to come. And they quote the pasuk in Ketubot. It's a pasuk from Shir Hashirim. It's found 3 times. Ishpati etchem benot Yishalayim im ta'iru v'im ta'oru et avashet ad shetechpatz. They're taking the sentence out of context. It's a midrash, it's not halacha. But basically the sentence they interpret to mean, don't stir up redemption until God is good and ready. That's their position. That's their position. Religious Zionists, and I'm one of them, see Am Yisrael, the nation of Israel and the land of Israel, as being in partnership with God. In partnership with God. There's a great story told about the Kutzka. The Kutzka said to his students, "My students, where is God?" And the students said, "Where is God? God is everywhere." To which the Kutzka said, "Nein, mein Kinder, Gott ist wo mir lost in mein." No, my children, God is not everywhere. God is where you let Him in. By the way, that question we ask every Shabbat. Hayeh Mikom Kivodo. Where is God's glory? Our position is, as much as we are searching for God, as Abraham Heschel said, God is searching for us. As much as we are awaiting the Messiah is waiting for us. As much as we are yearning for redemption is yearning for us. That's why at the Seder, when we mark our past redemption from Egypt and we're offering the hope for the future redemption, we open the door for Elijah the prophet. Why? Because it's Elijah, the prophet Malachi says, who's going to announce the coming of the Messiah. So my brilliant son, Dov, he said to me when he was a little boy, "Abba, if Elijah the prophet, if Eliyahu is jumping all over oceans like a Superman and drinking all of this wine, why do we have to open the door for him? Can he come through the cracks?" And it's a deep question. I didn't have the answer. But later I realized, you know what the answer is? You want the Messiah to come? Open the door. Got to get off your hands, okay? And open the door. God, maybe the Messiah is knocking at the door. That's why the Rav called his Redemptive Israel book, what does he call it? Kol Dodi Dofek, the voice of God, the beloved is knocking. God is saying, open the door. And there's the description that we say, come on, I put on my night clothes, I put on my gook, I can't open the door. And by the time I get to the door, there's a description of I'm trying to turn the candle, but I got the cream on, and the handle keeps slipping. finally, I opened the door. V'dodi chamakava, the beloved had passed. This is your moment. As much, I would go so far as to say we need God for redemption. I would argue redemption needs us. It doesn't happen all at once. Look at number 9. It's Yerushalmi and Brachot. The right-wing world say that redemption will come in an instant when God wants. Says the Yerushalmi, Rabbi Chia the Great and Rabbi Shimon ben Chalafna were walking in the plains of Arbel in the darkness before morning. V'ra'u ayelet hashachar shebaka ora, and they saw the light of the morning star break out. Amar Reb Chia Rabba, the Reb Shimon ben Chalafta. So Reb Chia, he turns to Reb Shimon and he says, Be'Rabbi, eminent one, Kach hi ge'ulatan shel Yisrael. This is the way redemption will come. Kima, kima, like the sun rising. Friends. Slowly, slowly, through a partnership of human beings and God. I turned to my Rebbe, Rav Yehuda Amital, of blessed memory, during the end of his last years. I always would visit him before I left Israel. And I would always say to him, Dvar Torah, give me a Dvar Torah before I leave. So one time, I didn't ask him for a Dvar Torah, but I said, Yesh li sheila, I have a question. I said to him, okay, he's a religious Zionist, head of the Yeshiva Alon Shvut, together with Reb Aaron Lichtenstein. I said, Rebbe, it's supposed to start, it's slowly, we're in partnership with God like the sun rising, but I said to him, it doesn't seem like it's always rising. It doesn't seem like it's always an upward movement. So he pointed to number 10. He didn't point to number 10, but he pointed to this pasuk, where Zechariah, the prophet, says, Gili ma'od bat Zion, rejoice greatly, daughters of Zion. Hari bat Yerushalayim, shout, daughters of Jerusalem. Hinei malkech yavo lach, see, your king will come to you. Tzadik v'noshahu, he is righteous and victorious, and you know how he will come? Ani, like a poor person. V'rochev al chamor, and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. And he looked at me and he said, what do you think? And I didn't respond. So he helped me out and he said, Avram, have you ever been on a donkey? It says redemption is going to come like you're riding on a donkey. I said, I don't think I've ever been on a donkey. He said, I've been on a donkey. And the way a donkey works is first of all, it moves very slowly. And it moves forward. And then it could be bucking and lurching backward. It's slowly, slowly. Sometimes we're moving forward. Sometimes we're standing still. Sometimes we're moving backward. But ultimately, we make it. Those are the 3 caveats that I wanted to leave you with. 1, Jewish sovereignty is not guaranteed. It depends on us. 2, and it depends on every one of us. The cornerstone of my rabbinate is don't wait for someone else. It depends on us. Everyone can make a contribution, and no one can make the same contribution as someone else can make. Number 2, I'm living outside of Israel. I'm not a complete Zionist. May I at least be a yearner of Zion. Number 3, for redemption, God needs some help. God needs some help. So we're 70 years old, Chevra, and with all of Israel's issues, and we've got a lot of issues. But I'm a big fan of the principle of leadership called go to the balcony. Do you know what go to the balcony is? Go to the balcony is a principle of leadership which runs something like this. You're on the dance floor. Somebody says to you, how's it going? You say, how's it going? It's very crowded down here, and people are awkward. There's no grace in the way they dance. Now go to the balcony, upstairs, and you're looking at the same scene. And somebody asks you, how's it going on the dance floor? You say, you know what? The dance floor's not that crowded. And people, they look pretty graceful. You know, I was watching some of these panel discussions talking about Israel at 70. Panel discussions, everybody's critical of Israel. We should be doing this, we should be doing that. Ribono shel olam. Where was America when it was 70? We're a young nation. 70 years old. At 70, this is a time to go to the balcony. It's a time to celebrate. You know how it is? Sometimes if you look in the mirror and we're too close to our face, we're going to see too many wrinkles. Sometimes it's good. When Moses got to the burning bush, what does it say? He gets to the burning bush and then it says, Moshe says, Asura na ve'ereh. Let me go to the side. Let me back up in order to see. Why? Moshe, you want to go see it? Get close. Don't get too close. Don't get even too close to God. Back up. See it from a distance. And when you see it from a distance, Israel's done great things. We started with a country of 600,000 Jews. We're 6.6 million Jews in a country of about 7.8 million, something like that. Wow. 6.6 million in 70 years. Soviet Jewry, 1.5 million Soviet Jews living in Israel. Our black brothers and sisters, for the first time, leaving Africa, not in the bowels of ships, but on the wings of El Al. What to be proud of. And if something happens to French Jewry, come on. Or to American Jewry. Industry, agriculture. I remember going to Stone in 1961, and you could take water, and there was a sign that said, remember Mayim Chayim, close the faucet tight. Now Israel is exporting water. Exporting the knowledge of how to, from arid land, how to make water, startups, medicine. My wonderful friend Stuart Harris of blessed memory contracted the most terrible cancer. He was on the phone with the greatest doctors in the world. He had the means to go anywhere. He stayed in Sheba. He stayed in Tel HaShomer. Missions of Israel worldwide. You know what the joke is in Israel? During the Haiti earthquake, if you needed a bypass surgery, the only place you could get it is you'd have to fly to Haiti to get your bypass surgery. I mean, this is just it's a Torah study. With all the criticism, there's more Torah study taking place in Israel today than anywhere ever in all of history. The dream of Zion is becoming a reality. The term of Zion is alive. And Tzion, what does Tzion mean? I said it in the beginning. Tziyun. Tziyun means mark. But Tziyun is also, I think, very similar to the word, how do you say excellent in Hebrew? That's it. That's it. Tzion is mitzuyan. It's hitting the target right in the center. Oh, you can hit the targets, we Jews. But in the center, if you really want it to be in the center from where the light emanates, to be the Or LaGoyim, the La'or Goyim, it's got to be in Eretz Yisrael. Now open your hearts for one final thought. I can't leave the session without saying this. Yes, Tzion is the Tziyun, the mark, the Mitzuyan, the excellence, which is in the center, the proactive mission. But the reality is in the Torah, do you know where light comes from? Light. Stop the average person in the street, ask them where light comes from, they'll say what they'll say. But in the Torah, where does it come from? Right in the beginning of the Torah. What does it say? It says in the beginning of the Torah, Breshit bar Elokim, the God created. And then it says, Va'aretz hayta tohu va'avohu v'choshech al pinei tahom. There was darkness on the face of the deep. God says to the darkness, Vayome Elokim, Yehi. Light comes from darkness. Built into redemption, we touched on this, is suffering. Read Yeshayahu Nun Gimel. Read Breshit Perek Tedvav, where God says to Abraham, you're going to go to Egypt. Vavadum v'inu otam. You will be slaves, you'll be afflicted. Then from Egypt, you will experience the Exodus. Suffering is built into redemption. It's true in our individual lives. There is no high without having experienced a low, without having put in effort and sweat and toil. The light comes from the darkness. The light comes from the suffering. And there has been suffering in Israel. And I'm talking about suffering of loss of life. And so, a Yalkut Shimoni, number 11, it's the Yalkut, which is very late, probably 11th, 12th century, on the Tilim of Yancha Adonai Biyom Tzara. We say it every day in the Lamnatseach before Voletzion. May the Lord answer you in your time of distress. What does it mean, may the Lord answer you in time of distress? Friends, open your hearts. Mashal lima hadavad omer. To what can this be compared? Le'av uben, to a father and a son. And it could be a mother and a daughter. We just heard last week a woman say a few words about her daughter who was in the army, whose life was taken on the Tayelet a year ago. A father and a son, shayu malchim baderach, they were walking in the forest, they were walking on the way. And they were walking and walking. Nichaga haben, the son tired. Amar la'aviv, he said to his father, Abba, Abba, father, father. Heichan hi hamedina, where's the state? Where's the city? Amalo. The father turned to the son and said, Beni, Beni, my son, my son. Siman zeh, this is the sign that you're getting close. Siman zeh tehei biyadcha. In ra'ita bet hakvarot. As I say this, I'm full of emotion. If you see the cemetery, lefanecha, harei hamedina krova lecha. If you see the cemetery, then you know you are close to the city. There is no city in Israel that does not have on its outskirts a cemetery, with a section for those who fell in defense of the land of Israel. Enter into Yerushalayim, it is not just random. What is at the outskirts of Yerushalayim? Har Herzl. It's going to be Har Herzl. And so some imagery, I was during the Gaza war, during Tzuk Eitan, I decided I had to be with my daughter Ilana and her 9 children and her husband. Her eldest Gilad was then in the Egol's elite unit, and her son Eitan was in the Air Force doing very, very important work. And I was with her day and night. I don't think I went on a trip where I tired more. If she went to Rami Levy, big supermarket, I went, and she's shopping for a big family. I was exhausted. If she had her nails done, I went with her. If she had her hair done, I went with her. I was with her when she would drive, and suddenly, flashing on her phone, it would say, fish burger, and our heart would drop, and my heart would drop. What was it? Who's calling? Fish burger, it's Bezek, it's the telephone company we want to talk to you about. It is a frightening, frightening time. As soon as I landed, Yossi Schoenfeld, who picked me up, a dear friend who davened here for a year, dear, dear friend, he said there's a funeral for Moshe Malako. Moshe Malako was an Ethiopian, and the funeral was taking place on Har Herzl. So we went to the funeral. I always have to stay a little bit of a distance because I'm a Kohen. He's an Ethiopian Jew, a holy black brother. And when the father said, Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevarach, may the name of God be blessed over his son's open grave, may God's name be blessed, he could hardly speak. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevarach. And then we heard that Max Steinberg, an American Chayal Boded, was killed. And Ilana said that she heard, our daughter Ilana said she heard on the radio that there may not be a minyan. Funeral was taking place in Har Herzl. I said, we have to go. 20,000 people came to that funeral. And only in Israel, we're standing shoulder to shoulder, and suddenly there's an announcement, and the person says, Kahal HaNichbad, honored community, if you hear a siren, don't be afraid, fall to the ground, wait on the ground 10 minutes, and then we'll continue. And I thought of the rabbinic statement that in the Holy Temple, people would stand shoulder to shoulder, and so they asked, how is there room for everyone to fall to the ground, to fall korim? If you're really together, you know how it is, if you're really together, you can be in the smallest space, there's room for everyone. And if you're not together, you can be in the biggest house, and it's not big enough. And Max Steinberg at that funeral, his father stands up, speaks no Hebrew. He gets up and he said these words, if you were to ask me whether I regret that my son joined the IDF, I have no regrets. And I actually inquired about that. And I was told that he explained that that was his son's decision. Maybe he would have decided differently, but now that it was his son's decision, he has no regrets. No regrets. And then Demetris, actually I was not at his funeral, a Russian Jew. He was in a tank that had a little aperture, and someone from the other side, a sharpshooter, the bullet went literally right through the little hole. The one that touched me most, they all touched me, was Yuval Heyman. I actually wrote the introduction to Yuval's book dedicated to his life. He lived down the block from Ilana. His mother is Zohara, his father is Moshe. And during the war, our grandson Gilad came home for mother's meal just for about an hour. And during that time, he went to make a shiva call, just imagine. And he sits down with Moshe, the father of Yuval. And Moshe looks at him and he says, be a panther. When you're out there, look to the right, look to the left, be careful. Here he's sitting shiva for his son. And the next morning, it was Ilana's chance, our daughter's chance, to bring Zohara, Yuval's mother, breakfast. She was sitting shiva, and everybody was preparing food. And these two mothers hug. And to this day, I wondered what they said to each other. One was saying, I'm so sorry, I have no words. And the other was saying, may your son be safe. That Tisha B'Av, the end of the war, Michael, our son-in-law, was like our son, and we went to Har Herzl. I'm a Kohen, so I'm a little bit above, but I could see the following. There was Moshe Malako, an Ethiopian Jew, buried. Not far from him, you could see it. You go to the top of Har Herzl. Is Demetris, a Jew from the former Soviet Union. And next to him is Max Steinberg with an American flag and an Israeli flag, the American Jew. And not far away is Yuval. He's actually a Kohen, so he's buried in that section, an Israeli. And I started to cry like a child. I said, God, this is like a kibbutz galiot. It's like an ingathering of exiles from America, from Ethiopia, Israeli born from Russia. And I offer the prayer, as I know you join me in offering the prayer. Let there be on this 70th a kibbutz galiot, an ingathering of the exiles to Israel. But God, enough, let it be through life. Let it be through life. Lu Yehi, Lu Yehi, Lu Yehi. I'll pause here and we'll spend no more than 5 minutes if anybody has a reflection or an observation. I've done a lot of talking, but any thoughts? Lisa, yes, please.
I think there is an enormous difference.
Please, if anybody has to leave, and thank you so much, such a wonderful turnout. Thank you so much for coming. And Ilana also told me to tell you, she lives in Efrat. You're all welcome. So she won't even know you're there. There are so many kids running around.
There's a great difference in the diaspora now, between now and before the formation of Israel, in that the Jews were, in this country, were viewed as helpless and homeless and helpless. And once we had a home, we were no longer seen as helpless.
That's right.
And that's as I've lived in both of them.
Leza, before anyone runs, Leza's comment is so real. One of the greatest contributions of the state of Israel is giving Jews in the diaspora a sense of pride. There's so much, a sense of a new Jew. Look at a sense of strength. Look at the Hebrew language. Do you know there was a time when the early Zionists, the modern Zionists, they were talking about the language being English. Could you imagine? There was even a suggestion when Israel was suffering great inflation that maybe they should go to the dollar. Thank God they didn't do that. It's a shekel. It's the Hebrew, the rebirth of the Hebrew language, Ben Yehuda. These are extraordinary. The Soviet Jewry movement. Now that was a movement that was more American than Israeli, but without Israel, it could never, ever have happened. The only way that young, and it was all ages really, American Jews had the backbone, the Hadar Yisrael, to stand up for Soviet Jews, is they saw what was going on in Israel. That Israelis stood up and had that Hadar. You're absolutely right, Leza.
You could almost say, now there is no need for Biolansky.
We're going to stop with that, okay? Thank you for coming.